Hi, good afternoon. It's 4:35, December 11th. I'd like to call the Escambia Board of County Commissioners Public Forum to order. Katrina Ramos.
Hello, I'm here today to talk about taking down...
if you would please state your name, Katrina.
Oh, I'm sorry. Katrina Ramos.
Okay.
To remove, completely take down the Confederate flag that is flying over the Bay Center, no matter what form it's in, whether it's the battle flag, the stars and bars, the rebel flag, every form of it needs to be taken down. I'm going to use a quote from Alexander Stephens. He was the vice president of the Confederacy during the Civil War. And he says that the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery and subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition. Whether it be the battle flag or the stars and bars flag, every and any form of this flag must go. This flag not only symbolizes hate and a blatant disregard of the disenfranchisement and the ongoing racial divides that continues to infiltrate our communities. To continue to fly this Confederate flag, it is saying that you agree with the oppression and systematic racism that this flag represents. As our children go across the stage and they graduate and they go to the Bay Center and they're excited about their diplomas, they walk out to this flag. As our children continue on with their education and they get their degrees, they walk out to this flag. And this flag is not only saying to them that you don't matter, but it's saying that your accomplishments don't matter, because we're still living in a society that perpetuates racism. This flag not only continues to divide our city, but it still goes on to say that no matter what our children do, no matter what we do as African Americans, that we're devalued. I have 175 petitions from the community that are saying that we want this flag down. We want it down now. We're definitely on the heels of Eric Garner, and we're on the heels of Tamir Rice, and we have so many racial divides. I would want to see Pensacola be the first one to do what we should do and make equality across the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos.
Yes, my name is Diane Crumwell, and I look forward to Mr. Berry being the chair.
Oh, thank you. It's very kind.
Being up there today. I'm here to speak about the removal of the Confederate flag. I just drove past the Civic Center on my way down here, and there it is flying in its all supposed glory where it does not belong. There's no place for the Confederate flag here in Pensacola. It's time for that to be removed. It is a symbol of hate and racism, and it divides Escambia County. We have enough issues to deal with without flying that insulting flag. It's the symbol of the KKK. We even had lynchings out here in Ferdinand Plaza, right here around the corner from us. It is time for us to, the citizens here, we demand it. It is time for us to remove the Confederate flag. It has no prominence and no need to be flying here in Escambia County. I grew up here, went to school here in the 70s with the race riots and everything else that was going on, and Escambia High with the rebel flag and all that, and removed it. And we pay taxes on that building. The county owns that building, and no other county business or structure here in Escambia County flies that flag. And I don't understand why it still remains there today. So I'm asking you please to consider removing it. I think it's embarrassing, and it brings back really bad memories. There's a lot of healing that needs to go on here, and a lot of unity that needs to happen. We have a lot of issues with the Sheriff's Department and in the African American community and racial profiling, and I just feel like this is just another thorn in the side of Escambia County, and that it needs to be taken down.
Thank you, Ms. Crummell.
My name is Larry Williams, and I reside at 6410 Dunbar Road, Wedgwood. Chairman Berry, thank you for the opportunity to speak about Wedgwood and some of the issues that concerned our community, as well as here in Escambia County and throughout America. I'm going to stay on strip. I want to first congratulate the recent winners of the elections in their respective districts, and know that you represent a very diverse constituency. Some of those within your constituency are immigrants that have been in this county for years and in this country for even longer, without any rights or a clear path to citizenship. This is not right, because as President Obama said when he signed the executive order giving illegal immigrants a path to citizenship, many of them work in our businesses, clean our yards, wash our cars, pick our produce for the farms, and work to take care of our elderly, etc. And again, Southern states, our Republicans are leading the charge to fight the president with another frivolous lawsuit that wastes taxpayers' dollars, when all the Congress has to do is pass a legislative law on immigration reform. I might add that the executive orders have been used since the founding of the Republic by every president. As a matter of fact, President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order. So was President Truman when he integrated the military. Ronald Reagan when he defunded abortion clinics. President Clinton when he referenced environmental justice, to our current president. The path to changing an executive order is clear. Create a law. Further, pass a continuous resolution that would not affect local residents in the federal government from losing their job right now during this critical time in the year. I did not come to speak about the issue of the Confederate flag. However, it does line up with many issues of racial tensions that are stirring in our nation. And so the issue of the Republican flag, rebel flag, which is something that I can remember when they talk about way back in Escambia High School, when they talk about the things that are going on. So my point that I would like to make to the larger issue here is that there appears to be racial undertones here in America, throughout Florida, and particularly in Escambia County. And what I'm asking is that those in power see them for what they are, racial injustices that need to be corrected, take legislative action to do something about them. Simply, if it means removing the Confederate flag, take that step. Do that today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Samuel Horton.
My name is Samuel Horton. I was born here in Pensacola, Florida. However, during my time working, I worked and lived in Tampa for over 7 years. One of the things that hurt me to my soul was that the Sons of the Confederacy erected one of the 3 largest Confederate flags right around the corner from our house. Every day for 7 years, I was forced to endure that symbol. When I returned home to Pensacola, Florida, to attend the circus here, the Cirque du Soleil, took my girlfriend, I had to then again endure that symbol. Why do we have such a divisive symbol? I would like for you to just think about if for some reason during World War II the Germans had occupied Pensacola for a year, let's say 16 months they occupied Pensacola and they flew the swastika over our fair city. Would we today fly their flag? Would we today think that that was an appropriate symbol that somebody that we were fighting against and were victorious over, that we would still today honor them? A few quick facts. In January 1st of 1861, Florida seceded from the Union. In May 10th of 1862, Pensacola surrendered to the Union. That means for 16 months, we were under the rule of the Confederacy. North American slavery started in 1619, and the effective date of the Emancipation Proclamation was 1863. That's 244 years of African American, North American slave trade versus 16 months of the Confederacy. Where is the flag for the people that suffered under the slavery that the Confederates promoted so vigorously? Where are their flags? Where is the flag for my people? I ask you to change your decision, or I ask you to take down the flag today, not tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. If we could please refrain from the applause, it'll move much smoother and faster. Reverend Julie Kane.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak for a few moments with you today, and I am also addressing the issue of the Confederate flag before the Civic Center.
Please state your name briefly.
Reverend Julie Kane. Thank you. I come as a local pastor. I've lived here for about 8.5 years. Prior to that, North Carolina for 13 years. And as a pastor, I would just like to ask you how you would feel about my having an armband with a symbol like this that I would display. How does it make you feel? What about an armband like this? As a pastor. As a pastor, I'm a symbol of clergy people of many faiths and traditions. But you know, the swastika as the symbol of Nazi Germany, the swastika had been used in other cultures and other times, but Germany today does not have flags with the swastika on it. They've been removed in the denazification of Germany. Now, the Confederate flag may have multiple meanings, but when the majority of people see it, especially in public, it's associated with a very racist regime of the South that enforced the institution of slavery and the racial injustices against African Americans in our country. I live on a country road. I have a neighbor who has a Confederate flag in his yard. I drive by it every day. I'm offended by it. If I had the opportunity to get to know him better, which I'm not likely to do, I would consider asking him to take it down. But as a citizen of this county, whose money, along with all these other folks, go to support our public buildings and our government, this is a very inappropriate symbol for a public building. And it does symbolize hatred. And it encourages hatred and encourages hateful acts. And we have enough of that without the racial divisions that we have in our community and that are flaring up across our country. So please do take it to heart and take it to your conscience and make a step toward a brighter future for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Kane. Chris Hendricks.
Afternoon. My name is Chris Hendricks. Stay out in the county. I do want to come tonight and speak on the issue of the Confederate battle flag in particular. This flag is more or less a flag of divisiveness, as you have heard from previous speakers up here. I grew up watching the Dukes of Hazzards. Didn't have a problem with it because I didn't know no better. As I became older, a more mature man, and being out and about in the Navy for 5 years, I've seen various people with various meanings. I come home, and more or less the same thing I see over and over is people using that flag in a sense of Southern pride and in a sense of divisiveness. It has always been a symbol of hate that I have seen. In fact, more or less, my mother is one of the first students of the integration of Pensacola High School, and I've had horror stories told to me time and time again because of people who stood behind that flag. And when I have problems in the county with people in particular, not talking about the law or anything like that, but individuals, just because of where I've lived at in parts of the county, it's always been people who fly that flag and say horrible things to me as a person. So as far as I'm concerned, I see that flag as a representation of people who say that they were building a path for freedom because people were oppressing them, meaning the North, at that time, and then turn around and oppress another man and saying you can't have freedom. So those people who flew that flag fought for that sense of freedom while simultaneously holding another man down from having freedom. So as a county progressing, as the city has done, I think we need to take that flag down, use a more appropriate representation, like I heard Mr. Robinson say actually on a podcast interview earlier this month, which satisfied me. I was happy with that podcast of what I heard on the radio. And I think it will be a good thing for this county and a good thing to move towards reconciliation coming from a segregated past or a hard past. And then moving forward with this county so that we can move forward and being the best county in North Florida and in the Southeast. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks.
Larissa Farrar. And I too come to talk about the Confederate flag. Amongst a couple different people, I'm coming from a different angle because I have not always been in Pensacola, Florida. Coming from New York City and moving down here it was a culture shock for me. I came down here and the first time that I ever experienced the Confederate flag was when somebody drove past and said derogatory things. Living in Milton, Florida, just for a little while, I experienced seeing white capes. I experienced those things, and the last thing that I saw was a Confederate flag. So every time I see a Confederate flag, it goes back to that moment where I felt like I was insulted. I was hated. Things that they had no idea about me. They didn't have any idea about me. So I ask that you would just take down the Confederate flag because, once again, hate is all I see. Not just hate, racism, lynching, and everything else. So the Confederate flag is just not because it's a certain people, but it signifies things that are hurtful. Things that we see in America that we're supposed to be way beyond it. It's 2014 and we're still dealing with the same issues that we dealt with hundreds of years ago. So I ask today that you would bring down the the Confederate flag. And it's not just myself. It's not just because of the things that I've experienced, but also the things that I've learned. So please take down the Confederate flag. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farrar. Keontae Humphreys.
Good evening. My name is Keontae Humphreys, and I'm here with the American Civil Liberties Union of Northwest Florida. Today, you've heard from people of different walks of faith, different ethnicities, and also different sexual orientations. And so I think it's clear to say that as a community, it's time for Escambia County to address the issue of the Confederate flag. For almost 300 years, chattel slavery existed in this country. I put emphasis on the word chattel as it describes America's form of slavery for centuries, where people of color, both humans of African descent and Native Americans, were considered personal property, thus sold and bought as commodities. In 1787, at the Constitutional Convention, the colonies agreed that people of African descent would be counted as 3/5 of a person, in large because they were, at the time, considered property. Then in 1857, in a landmark decision of Dred Scott versus Sanford, the Supreme Court upheld that people of African descent, whether enslaved or free, could not be American citizens, and therefore did not enjoy the privileges or the protections of the law. The debate over chattel slavery continued, leading southern states to break away from the Union and form the Confederate States of America in 1861. Although we've learned that Pensacola territory, Escambia County, it only lasted here about 16 months, the Confederacy lasted, in fact, for about 4 years. This 4 years after the Dred Scott decision. but it's the departure from the Union and the symbols that we're here to talk about, which in fact represent the preservation of an economic and racial injustice. In 1865, slavery was abolished, but for some 150 years later, people of color still live with the remnants and symbols of America's dark past. The flag flying over the Civic Center is clearly one of those. It's time for the county to collectively align with the side of justice and reconciliation and take down the flag. Today, we ask the County Commission to make a motion to add the removal of the Confederate flag to your consent agenda, but don't just stop there. It's imperative that this commission also begin the rights of reconciliation and formally acknowledge the distasteful actions of your predecessors and issue a statement of affirmation for justice, peace, and racial equality. We can start tonight with the motion to add to your agenda. If not, although I don't condone it, Reverend Lonnie Wesley recently said that Pensacola could in fact be the next Ferguson. And with the deaths of Victor Steen, Angelique Hart, Brandon Brickley, and that flag flying over the Civic Center, we're a brewing kettle. While I don't condone nor incite such activity, I ask this commission not to welcome such activity from locals or outsiders and take the flag down. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Humphreys.
My name is Lynn Laird. I'm a citizen of Escambia County and of the United States of America. What you have received is some research that I and colleagues have done in regards to the Confederate war flag that's being presented later tonight or whenever. The war flag that's at the Bay Flag was created in May the 1st, 1863. Pensacola and Escambia County surrendered to the Union Army in May 10th, 1862. A year before, the Confederate Army and the Pensacola government moved to Alabama and remained in exile until the end of the war. The sons and daughters of the Confederate veterans claimed that the Confederate flag as their history, well, their history flew in Alabama, not in Pensacola or Escambia County. You'll also see in the report that there's all types of the second national flag, the Navy flag, and the so-called third national flag that I've heard that the Confederates would like to exchange for the war flag. The flag represents the Confederate flag as far as if through the eyes of, if you're an ethnographer, you know what I'm talking about. Some of you I know don't. But anyway, the Confederate flag represents racism, slavery, Jim Crow laws, racial segregation, hate groups who love the flag. Amongst them are the Ku Klux Klan, neo-Nazis, and the Aryan nations. Sons and daughters view the flag as a symbol of heritage, distinct cultural tradition of the South, whatever that means, and freedom from oppressive northern government. Well, I'm a northerner, and I'm also the son of the veterans of the Union Army, I guess, whatever they were. My great-great was actually an advisor to Abraham Lincoln. So probably some of you Southerners really don't like me. If you also in another form here, you'll see the names of 8 people that flag lynched in Pensacola. 8, right over there, folks.
Lynn, please speak to the
board.
board.
Am I done?
Please speak to the board.
Okay, I'm going to speak to you. 8, okay? There's also attached the people's history of the timeline of Pensacola when the lynching took place. And I really do feel that as a businessman who came down here, and I was going to advise my other business folks, I certainly wouldn't want to show them where the Confederate flag was flying. So I appreciate if you guys take time to read this, and I have more information. Have a good night.
Thank you, Lynn. Ellison Bennett.
While they're coming to the mic, Lynn, you have a slight error here. The battle flag was never the national flag. If you notice in what you sent, the battle flag is simply a component of the corner. The rest of it is a white field flag around it. So, the battle flag is in the second national flag, but when stuff starts getting discussed, I just want to make sure you have accuracy. But the rest of it was all right. I just want to be sure what you sent out to us, that was not... That's actually a white field around it. So the battle flag is simply the flag itself, the stars and the X, not the white field around it.
Lynn.
You can't tell if you can tell the vague white lines around it.
Commissioner, Mr. Bennett, please state your name. You have 3 minutes, Ellison.
Ellison Bennett, 106 Baines Avenue, Escambia County, Florida. I stand before you tonight representing my national board. Dr. Ruby Moon, Rockville, Maryland, is our national chair. Reverend H.K. Matthews is the national president. The organization that I'm proud to be a national board member of is a national movement for civil and human rights incorporated. We had a conference call on Sunday night, and I was asked to come before this body tonight. African Americans see the Confederate flag as a symbol of racism, both for the history and racial slavery in the United States of America, and Jim Crow laws, racial segregation as well. Hate groups in the South have constantly used this flag as a symbol of hate, bigotry, and racism. Such groups as the Ku Klux Klan, neo-Nazi Aryan Nation. It is quite simple, the solution to this. Take the flag down. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I was honored to represent my country in a foreign country. I'm honored to be a citizen, lifelong citizen of Escambia County. And somewhere I read that the citizens have a right to be heard. And what you all have heard tonight, that the flag is offensive. It is quite simple. The city made a change about 8 or 10 years ago with the flag, and now this issue is brought before you all. I also read somewhere that knowledge is powerful. You have the knowledge now. Please do something with it about the flag. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Right before I hit the gavel, I do want to thank the large crowd in the room for their decorum during that number of speakers, and especially when you have topics that people feel passionately about. Your behavior gave everyone the opportunity to be heard, and I certainly appreciate that. Heartfelt gratitude from our board.
Part 3-1, the recommendation concerning the Confederate flag, that the board discuss the board's action of February the 10th, 2000 related to the Confederate flag and vote either to keep or amend the board's action.
All right. Colonel Jim Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Jim Smith, a resident of Escambia County, born in Pensacola, went to school during segregation, and had exposure to the Confederate battle flag that was just referred to. I want to salute you and encourage you to and really thank you for putting this on the agenda, because you've seen it's been close to 15 years. I come before you asking that the display flag of 5 flags at the Pensacola Civic Center, now the Pensacola Bay Center, be changed to represent the history of this county and city. This county and city has been under 5 flags. The flag that's recognized by the city was adopted based on a public hearing and historical studies done by the county. And the conclusion was that the Confederate battle flag never flew over Pensacola. The only flag that ever flew over Pensacola was the first national flag of the Confederacy, known as Bars and Stars. And I come before you asking that the flag at the Pensacola Bay Center be changed to coincide with all the other flags throughout the county, city, and also the city of Milton. If you go in there, there's a 6 flag display, and they have the Bars and Stars as a part of that display. I think the Bars and Stars is a flag and a display that most citizens can embrace. And even though I was in the Marine Corps away from here for over 31 years, I still find the Confederate battle flag to be very offensive. And for the reasons stated, it's been adopted by numerous hate groups. And I'm surprised that a number of the people that are not in my generation still feel that that flag is offensive. I'm a member of a community service club. We meet at the Bay Center twice a month. And I've had numerous visitors and speakers ask, why is that flag flying when it's flown nowhere else in the city and the county? So I ask you tonight to take action tonight to change the flag, to take down the Confederate battle flag, replace it with the first national flag of the Confederacy, the bars and stripes. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Diane Crummell.
Okay, it's Diane Crummell. I've lived here for over 55 years. I'm a proud Democrat, Escambia County. And I know I spoke earlier, but I just want to bring out the fact that I lived through the race riots of the 70s, and I just cannot even believe that we're talking about, this flag still flying. And I just wanted to quote something out of In Weekly, dated December the 4th, in which Commissioner Wilson Robertson made a motion that the Confederate battle flag remain at the Pensacola Civic Center. And my question to you, Mr. Robertson, is what is your reason for leaving that flag? What would your reason? Why would you know? You know this all stands for. It's not what it used to be. It's what it stands for now. I know they didn't give permission for them to adopt it, but I take total offense to this, and many of my friends do as well. Well, I'm just reading here that you made the motion, and I'm asking you, and I'm going to read you exactly what it says. When Commissioner Wilson Robertson made his motion for the Confederate flag, the Confederate battle flag, to remain at the Pensacola Civic Center, which has since been renamed the Pensacola Bay Center, he included for the county to, quote, encourage the city of Pensacola to do the likewise. The city ignored that recommendation. I'm just asking what your reasoning for that. I think it's a fair question, and we deserve an answer.
Commissioner Robertson, before you respond, you're certainly welcome to respond and engage with Ms. Crummell. You're certainly welcome to wait for her time, and then you can speak all you'd like.
I will address at the end of the discussion, but I will make a brief comment to answer your question. But I'm not going to get in a back and forth debate with you. I firmly believe, like some others out here, the sons of the Confederacy, of veterans, fought, gave their lives in the Confederate Army. Do we not continue to recognize those veterans that gave their life fighting what at the time they thought was a just cause? And let me tell you, that war was more than just about what we perceive it was.
Well, I just want to point out that what it stands for today is hatred, racism, and it continues to divide Escambia County. It has no place in Escambia County, and I'm asking you to consider this. We don't need any other racial tension. I find it totally offensive. And when I go to that, I just drove by it and I saw that flag flying. It made me sick to my stomach, and it brought back all the memories when I went to high school with the race riots, Washington High and Escambia High. There is no place for that flag here in Escambia County.
Thank you, Ms. Crummell.
Larry Williams, Wedgwood. Again, I want to congratulate Mr. Gordon Pike for 41 years of service. That's an awfully long time to serve, and well done on the job. The Bible speaks to me, and it talks about shunning the very appearance of evil and wrongdoing. And for those who want to fly a flag that has heritage involved, have the right to do so. I don't think that is an issue that is at the discussion. The discussion is whether or not the county should fly a flag that represents racism, regression, and the past that is full of divisiveness as a symbol of what the county believes in. So the issue should be, what they do is their business. They have a right to do that. What you do represents all of us as citizens of Escambia County, not only those who served in the Confederate Army. I served in the United States Navy. The colonel served in the Marine Corps. We don't honor that flag. So it goes to a larger point of what's going on here, as I've come before you numerous times about Wedgwood and those who govern and affect the change that needs to take place here in Escambia County. You have within your authority an opportunity to say, hey, yes, we're moving forward. We're progressive. We're going to do what's right for the citizens of Escambia County, not just for the Confederate soldiers of this county or even larger. And that's the issue that is before you. So I ask, as you make your discussion, make your deliberation, and make your decision, that you consider not just what their rights are, but what all the rights are. And I'm not a member of their organization, nor do I have a desire to be, but I am a taxpaying citizen here in Escambia County, and I would like Escambia County to reflect my values, the values of the larger citizenry, and that is that we are inclusive, not divisive, and that the issues here should be of a diverse nature rather than a polarizing nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Hello, my name is Elaine Sargent. I'm a resident of Escambia County. I'm here to be on record as opposing our continuing display of the Confederate battle flag. The Confederate battle flag needs to come down. And as leaders, you can do this. This is not about burying history. We must continue to learn from our history. But this battle flag is a symbol of a very sad part of our history. And it does not need to be displayed as if we are honoring it. We are a union of people. And by taking down this Confederate battle flag, Escambia County can demonstrate this union. We can move forward and solve our problems together. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ms. Sargent. Chris Hendricks.
Hi, my name is Chris Hendricks. I'm a citizen of Escambia County, live at 10107 Castleberry Boulevard. I am a Navy vet, which I didn't mention earlier, so I understand the pride of being a veteran and serving our country. One of the first things I did when I got back from serving, I left Jacksonville, moved back home, and took a job. I was working at a local bookstore, and one of the events that happened after celebrating Mardi Gras, I want to tell a quick story about hate that happened. I was on my way home, and a truck came up, swerved. I assumed they were a little drunk, and so they decided to pursue me, and later on that afternoon, got out of the truck as I was trying to get away from them, and then they showed aggression towards me. One of the guys actually pulled out a gun, pointed it. I assume he was just drunk and playing. They went on about their way, but the flag they were flying out of the back of their truck was that Confederate battle flag. The mention of hate also, I did a quick Google search. The thing that I see most associated with that flag is KKK suits. So when we talk about hate and we talk about history and what it represents, there's 160 years after slavery, I think someone mentioned earlier, where this flag was used as a symbol of hatred and as a symbol representing that. I understand that the first Confederate flag was used as a symbol to kind of show, hey, we want to be a little separate, learn a little history lesson here. We want to be separate. Maybe we can get back together, so we won't want to separate ourselves too far. And that's where we need to be. We need to be in a place of reconciliation so that we can have really great integration and a progressive nature going forward as a great county, as a upstanding county that I want to be a part of. But when I'm a part of something that is holding on to the past, not just a past of good, but more so a past that is tied together with a lot of mess and hatred and negativity. It also has some good things that people died for, they felt was the right pursuit, in essence, but history tells the story that we see in this flag and what it represented, and anything that looks like that represents is not a friend of mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Beverly Perry.
Perry, 622 West Belmont Street, Pensacola. I'm not from Florida, but I'm a Southerner through and through, born in Lake Charles, Louisiana, raised in North Carolina, and now a Floridian. I've found out from family members that my great-grandfather was a Confederate soldier and wounded and disabled in the war, affected him the rest of his life, and many other people in the family were in the war too. And from what I've heard about them, they seem like most of them were probably pretty good people. I think if they were here today, they would say what I'm saying. Take the flag down. There's no place for the symbolic Confederate flag to be flying in government. Keep the history, but there's no place for the symbolic Confederate flag. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Katrina Ramos.
I would like to present the board with 175 signatures that we did get concerning taking down the Confederate flag. As I stand here today, I'm extremely emotional because I feel like I have entered the middle of a KKK meeting. The fact that we are having a discussion about a flag that not only honors Southern heritage, it honors slavery. If the Confederacy would have won, I still would be a slave. I wouldn't be sitting here being able to talk to you guys today. I am more than upset to even pay taxes in a city to vote for people who would even agree to continue to put this flag up. I have a son, I have a daughter, so when they graduate, is it okay for me to say that Confederate flag is up? They were fighting for slavery, but it's okay because we're celebrating Southern heritage. In a country where we are in 2014, we are centuries long away from slavery, but yet we still have the effects today. I challenge you to take it down today, forever. I don't care what form it's in, whether it's the stars and bars, it's the Confederate battle flag, whether it be the Confederate Navy Jack, in every form is hate, it's slavery, it's disenfranchisement. It literally tells every African American person that you are the most devalued person in this county, in a county that we pay taxes. We vote. We put people in office to speak for us. And if you're speaking for us, we challenge you to not just take it down, but make a statement. Make Pensacola the example of what to be. Not racism and hate, but can we please become the progression that this country needs? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos.
My name is Samuel Horton. Earlier I spoke about my experiences in Tampa, Florida, but I'd like to begin my remarks by speaking about the experiences that I had when I moved to Fort Walton Beach after I came back to northwestern Florida, where in front of the Walmart in Fort Walton Beach, there was a gentleman that must have owned this property. He continued to put up the Confederate battle flag on his private property, which is his right, and have very hateful remarks, various N-words, various defamatory remarks about President Obama. And that, again, was very disturbing to me. I felt danger. And, you know, we've heard several comments about honoring heritage and that people died for this flag, and that because somebody died, we should honor them with a flag outside of taxpayer-paid facilities. With all due respect, you can fly that flag at your own homes. That is your right. But it is also my right not to pay taxes and be put upon by such a divisive flag. Since we were bringing up images, again, these are images of KKK members with this flag and people that were lynched in neighboring Mobile, Alabama in 1981. Michael Donald lynched. And here's a Confederate battle flag with a KKK saying, "Fetch the rope," on a t-shirt. We're supposed to live under this? So this common phrase now, "I can't breathe." I can't breathe doesn't just mean I'm being choked. It means I also can't breathe in a climate of hatred, in a climate of segregation, in a climate of oppression. Symbols mean something. You want this battle flag because you say it's a symbol of your heritage. Well, it's also a symbol of hate. And I'm sorry that it is. I'm sorry that somebody co-opted it. But let's deal in the reality. We have to deal in the reality of where we are today, not what we wish it could be. And the reality is the flag is a divisive symbol. You, Mr. Robertson, have the opportunity to correct your previous mistake, because it was a mistake, because it's divisive. We elected our representatives to bring the community together. If you do not bring the symbol down, you are failing in your mission. and you will be on record. You will be have on record throughout history as the people that voted to keep our community apart. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horton.
A citizen of Escambia County. I came before you earlier. I'll try to be a little bit more brief this time. I did mention before that as a clergy person, it would be inappropriate for me to wear armbands with symbols like these. I'm held to a standard to support the value of love and harmony in our community. And the battle flag at the Bay Center is a divisive symbol for our community today. And not only for the people who live here, we've heard from them, but for people who come and visit at the Bay Center, it reflects poorly, I feel, on our city. And that's not something that we need. Unfortunately, there's a lot of different flags that represent our very rich history, our cultural history. They all have political conflicts attached to those histories. And yes, it is very important to honor the veterans and for what they fought for. Some of the veterans are here in this room. But unfortunately, this particular flag is a very painful flag. And I'm here a second time representing a little old lady. She's 90 years old, a congregant in my parish, who lives at Wesley Manor. If she could, she'd be here tonight. From the moment I came to Pensacola, she told me how disturbed that she was that the flag was still flying. And I challenge the county to follow the city's example, find an alternative. I appreciate that some of the gentlemen representing the Sons of the Confederacy are suggesting possible alternatives or recognizing that it is a divisive issue. So on behalf of my elders who have lived here a long time and who are pained and feel disgraced by the presence of the flag, and on behalf of the elders of some of the young people who have committed themselves to staying through this long meeting and speaking out out of gratitude and indebtedness to their elders, I do ask you seriously to consider removing it and putting another alternative there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kane.
Again, Keontae Humphreys with the American Civil Liberty Union. But this time I'm also speaking as a highly qualified social studies teacher. Take the test, did very well on it. Let's talk about history. We've heard today that it is a symbol of hatred in a nuanced sense. But in fact, as a, again, very highly qualified, the federal government has determined that to be, so I can teach anywhere in this nation. The states that broke off into the Confederacy did so in an effort to preserve what they thought was a just society, a society built on an agricultural economic system supported by slave labor. And so whether we're talking about the Confederate flag of 1861 or the Confederate flag of 2014, we're talking about hatred that spans centuries, not just that of the KKK or any other nuanced organization. We're talking about a flag that is a representation of a select group of people in this country who thought that it was okay and justified that people that look like me and many others in this district should continue to be 3/5 of a person and not American citizens, but rather the property of a few. And so today, I ask you to align on the right side of justice and of reconciliation, and not just remove the flag, but also to accept and apologize to this community for upholding a truth that is so divisive that it causes many people right here in this community who've been hurt and harmed. Because in 1976, there was a race riot that broke out at Escambia High School, right here in this county, because of that very flag. And so if the school district and the city can make progress and acknowledge how divisive that symbol is in this community, how dare the county commission not also? And with that, I say thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Humphreys.
Larissa Farrar, thank you for letting me speak once again. Actually, like Ms. Trina Ramos, I'm a bit emotional because of Mr. Robinson's comment when he came down here to give the Boy Scout and the comment that he made. That was very, very disheartening. That's first. Man. Secondly, it's hard to stand here today. It was a young, well, she's not young. She was 84 years old when we were downtown at the MLK Monument. And we wanted to take a picture of her because she was giving us the story of how she was here when the race riots were going on. She didn't even want to take a picture with us because she said, no, I'm well known, and she covered her face. So that in itself, for an 84-year-old woman in 2014 to still be scared to take a picture with a bunch of young ladies and one young man because she was afraid of what might happen. That in itself is hard. But we came together because we figured, you know what? Change can still happen. I graduated from PSC, and my graduation is supposed to be on Saturday. But the Confederate flag is there, so I'm not sure if I'm going to walk. Not because I just didn't want to buy a cap and gown, but because of what we are willing to stand for. So today, we ask you to vote and take down the Confederate flag, not just for us in here, but for the old lady that was 84 years old that didn't even want to speak or even take a picture. I thank you for letting me speak. And once again, please take down the Confederate flag. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farrar. Please. No. That concludes the speakers. Commissioner Robinson has asked to speak first. Commissioner Robertson would follow him, and then we'd kind of move down the board. Grover.
Mr. Chairman, if I take a few minutes, and I certainly appreciate the listening of all the different people that have come to speak tonight. I do have a couple of things I'd like to say on this topic, and begin in my own, I guess, description of dealing with Civil War, not just the Civil War, but Civil War in general. I am the documented direct descendant of Moore Fauntleroy. He moved to the New World in 1640s, came to the colony of Virginia. Why is that important? Because in 1640, Virginia was, in fact, it was the only colony that remained a royal colony, despite the fact that there was no king in England. That's because Moore Fauntleroy, even though he had lands and titles in England, he would have, if he had stayed, he would have been separated from his head in England. So he came to this land, which became this country. He settled there in Virginia and began to raise his family and continued. In the 1700s, my family also fought in another civil war that began the birthplace of this country and the separation from England and a belief, again, a situation of independence. Later, Moore Fauntleroy had a descendant, Judith Fauntleroy, who moved or who came to visit her sister in Escambia County, and she fell in love with a Army officer, R.C. Caldwell. It was at the beginning to build the forts here and the installations of the Navy base. In the 1840s, they built a house which stood until the early 20th century, about the teens, at the corner of Palafox and Chase Street. Gregory, right there where Soul Inn is. At that time, that was literally the unincorporated area that was out in the country. So the county really started at that point in 1840. We've gone a long way. But her, at the time of the outbreak of the Civil War, her son, my great-great-grandfather, left the house and registered in the Confederate Army. He was brought back to the house because he was only 13 years old. His mother said, Judith Fauntleroy said, if he wants to fight for his country, he's more than welcome to. At that point, he turned around and joined the Army. He did not return back to Pensacola for over 4 years, fighting during the entire war. He did not die in the war, but he died of a short life, unfortunately, from injuries, other things sustained from what happened and during the battle that ensued. I guess as things move on, I certainly have that heritage in my life. But I also have the heritage of my grandfather, who served as a judge in this community and an attorney in the 1950s, who had African-American clients and served causes, certainly not because of what he could afford to make from them, but because he believed they were right. So I've seen both sides of this issue and all of the items related to it. I certainly wish to honor those individuals who either fought or believed in their history and their heritage. And I think it is very difficult for us to say at one point, I can't respect you in flying any type of flag. But I do think at the other side, if we do not respect the individuals in saying something that has been commandeered as it has over the last 150 years to describe hate and hateful events, I think that is also something that, to me, is not the symbol of Escambia County. I brought this forward, and I knew the controversy that would happen, certainly because of my own internal struggles and family and ties in so many ways to this issue. But I believe, looking at the city of Pensacola and what has happened for 15 years, with the symbol, I think you probably have this pen. I saw Commissioner Underhill had this pen on earlier that has the 5 flags. It has the stars and bars, our first national flag, or whatever we want to call it. I certainly know as well the Fiesta of 5 Flags flies that flag. Even the 5 Flag Speedway flies that flag. And I know, while I certainly respect Mr. Smith and is a appointee of mine, it flies at our church as well in symbolizing the 5 flags. That building was certainly also desecrated during the occupation, as was, I guess, Judith Fauntleroy. She lost all of her, essentially, possessions she could not take to Greenville at the time after the war. This is emotional because it does tie on so many different issues. But when I look at that, I don't see how we can continue to fly the battle flag or any resemblance of it because of the challenge it has. But I also don't think there's any way we can go with the absence of a flag because of the same situation. How do we choose winners and losers in our community? With that in mind, I would like to make a motion that we replace the battle flag that currently flies at the Pensacola Bay Center with the stars and bars, and that we take an affirmative vote to do so at the earliest convenience of whenever, if that vote passes.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. Commissioner Robertson was going to have the floor next. Do I have a second for Commissioner Robinson's motion?
I'd like to make a substitute motion. I think we're confusing the issue at this point. I think there's almost a consensus to get rid of the flag, and there's been several discussions about what flag we'll replace it with. I'd like to make a motion that we remove the flag, and then go into a discussion of what flag we'll replace it with.
Commissioner Robinson.
I'm prepared to second that motion.
All right, that motion's been seconded. Commissioner Robertson has the floor.
You want to dispose of that motion first? Because I'm not going to be addressing that motion. I have no problem with removing the current flag.
I see this as discussion.
I have that motion. If he has no problem, I'd like to vote on it to remove it, and then further discussion of what flag we'll replace it with.
Any conversation or dialogue among the board before we call that vote? Seeing none, the motion is to remove the Confederate battle flag as it is, and that's the item to be acted on. In lieu of our voting situation, there's a lot of conjecture earlier about it, but we do want to be deliberate with it. So an affirmative motion here would remove an affirmative vote would remove the battle flag from the Civic Center. All those in favor of that, please raise your right hand. Seeing 5, the motion passes 5-0. Further discussion. Now this would be to Commissioner Robertson's floor.
And we will be voting on what flag that represents the, and I'd like to remember that we just heard, or remind us that we just heard from a lot in the audience that wants no Confederate flag to be flown. And I'm going to favor the third national flag, which still has the symbol in the corner, so it is highly recognized as the Confederate flag and not confused with the American flag, which I'm proud of. But let me make a view. I won't go back to the heritage way back. I don't know who I belonged to back in 1600 and something, and I don't know when they come here and where they come from. I know the last 70 years or plus since I became of age, and I'm going to say this right now. I was born in Mississippi, moved to Mobile, and have since been in Pensacola, and I am proud of my Southern heritage. I'll say that to anyone. And I will not apologize for the vote we took 15 years ago. I can tell you we thought at that time, I did, or I wouldn't have voted that way. It was the best that we could do at the time to represent those that died in the Confederate War fighting for what they thought was a just cause. And there was 4 other votes that voted with me, and one of them was Commissioner Willard Jr., an African American. That has to have some respect in this community that we didn't think it was racial at the time. Now, I'm highly offended at anyone that would come up here and relate the Confederate battle flag, which many Americans died under that flag, to the German swastika. The Hitler German swastika. To compare those two is absurd. You can't tell me a Confederate soldier fighting for what he thought was a good cause, and I'll apologize right now about this country ever having slavery. I would never, ever thought that was right. Never. And just because we have a few hate groups that we associate that battle flag with, as the lady said, we're going to do away with something because some hate groups has adopted that. I do agree. How far are we going to go to be politically correct? I totally buy that. I'm in favor, and I hope we could vote for that third national flag that does let anyone know that we're still proud of the American heritage of those Confederate soldiers that died fighting, and they deserve, as soldiers and veterans, to be honored. So I will tell you right now, I'm proud of my Southern heritage.
Commissioner Underhill?
I'm fairly new to the public sphere, so for those that do not know, I've spent my entire adult life in the profession of arms, and I would like to just make it a point that much of what you have heard today about the history of the Civil War, and in fact the idea that any war is civil, for those of us that have been there, will tell you that that is inaccurate history, and the reality of the Civil War has much to do with economics. It certainly has the slavery aspect to it. But it was also we were very much a divided nation between an industrial North and an agrarian South. I am very much a states' rights Southerner, and I'm very, very proud of my Southern heritage. I am also deeply ashamed that anybody under this flag was ever able under this flag and under a Christian cross was ever able to get right with the idea that any one man should own another man when we follow a God who washed the feet of those who followed him. Having said all of that, and we've heard much about the past, I want to talk more about the present, and I would also like to have us stop looking at the past just long enough to take a glimpse into the future before we make this decision. During our present, I have gone in harm's way wearing a flag, this one, on my sleeve. This is also the flag that we put over the caskets of those who fly home on their angel flights. And as much as I would like to think that there is a different future for America, there will come a time when I will send those two boys in harm's way, and they will go under this flag. When each of us took an oath to lead this county, we took an oath to this flag. This is the flag of Escambia County. This one flag. as much as I love my Southern heritage and my Southern past, it is my American present and my American future for which I was willing to lay down my life. So I would ask that as we go forward thinking about that, putting any other flag on the dais with this one is an insult not to our past, but to our present and our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Underhill. Commissioner Robinson?
I would like to indicate that if the Bay Center were flying all 5 flags, that we look at, for the Confederate flag to fly the first national flag or the stars and bars, which the city and many other organizations in this community fly.
That's a motion. Does the motion have a second? For the...
Well, well, if you're going to make a motion, Commissioner Berry, I've waited patiently. But if there's a motion, I can continue to wait.
Commissioner Robinson, if you'd like to withdraw the motion, Commissioner May has been waiting for the floor. Currently.
There's no second, so the motion dies for lack of second.
Commissioner May.
Thank you for indulging me, Mr. Chairman, and I won't be long because suddenly we've had a history lesson. Commissioner Underhill, we never even remotely had this type of conversation, but I probably could echo 99% of what you just said. I have good friends on both sides of the issue. There's no one that I respect more than Tommy and Susie as friends, and I have some good other friends of Jim Smith who are very passionate. There's a place in the annals of history for everything. If we forget our past, we'll make the same mistake in the future, so it's always good to have a remembrance, because in my biblical teaching, there was a rainbow put in the sky to remind man of his sins. And sometimes we have to pay for the sins of the past. And I would like to make things different in the past, but I can't. There have been commissions and studies that have studied this Confederate flag, the likes of the Honorable Judge Lacey Collier and Judy Benz and Tom Bonfield. For 14 and 15 years, we've had these emotional discussions that really seek to divide this community. When I ran for office, I ran on a platform of uniting rich and poor, black and white, white collar, blue collar. I seek to achieve that each day. I respect the flags. My dad was a historian, restored most of historic Pensacola. There are places for museums and yards and in our homes. I respect our experiences, and whatever your experiences were, you have to live that experience, and it's important to live that legacy and leave that legacy for your children and explain to them, even if their legacy has things that we're not so proud of, because each of us have things in our past that we're not proud of. But as Commissioner Underhill said, we salute one flag, the stars, the stripes of the United States. I find issue that we allow for this to become political, as many speakers have said, because the county owns multiple buildings. Even this building carries that flag. All of our community centers where our children learn and read, they don't carry that flag. The Civic Center is not a unique building. It's not our courthouse. It's not our sanctuary. It's just another county building that we've isolated because it becomes visible and it causes political divisiveness. So with that being said, I'm going to move that the flag that we have is a star-striped United States flag that each of us as commissioners salute, that our children go to school and salute, that our community at all of our ball games and at all of our events, we salute the star-striped, the flag of the United States, which is the home of the brave and land of the free, and what we live under today. So I'm going to make that motion. I don't know if I have a second, but I'm going to make a motion that the flag that will fly on all county buildings, not just the Civic Center. Let's stop isolating this and making it about the Civic Center. We're having a discussion now of when we're going to tear it down. Let's make sure that we put the same flag on all of our buildings. I don't subscribe to the theory of the city of 5 flags. The city has spent millions of dollars to market the upside of Florida. They don't even call it the city of 5 flags in any of our marketing material. And all of the millions that we spent, it's called the upside of Florida, not the city of 5 flags. So with that being said, I make the motion that we place on all county buildings the stars and stripes of the United States flag.
Commissioner May, for clarification, is that to also remove the other 3 flags from the Bay Center? So we've moved to remove 1. This would be to leave 4, or what exactly are you saying?
I certainly could be open for discussion for that, Commissioner Berry. I don't think that we're the city of 5 flags. I think that we're the city of the United States of America. I certainly would make the motion that we wave the 1 flag, the stars and the stripes, the United States flag, the same flag that we have here in the state of Florida.
I second that motion.
Commissioner Berry, just for clarification, the same 2 flags that we have in this building today, the United States flag and the state of Florida.
Commissioner Robinson had the floor next.
My only issue is we only, on every other flag, again, every other building, we only fly the United States flag or the I don't even know if we fly the Florida flag.
I don't know either.
But again, I think there is nowhere else in the county that we have any of the other 5 flags.
And why do we fly it at the Civic Center?
I guess that becomes the question.
I would like to know that
we do
answer.
have this. We do have the 5 flags there, but I think we're already flying the American flag. So the motion as it stands on the floor is to fly the American flag. We already do that at every facility, so I certainly don't oppose flying the American flag at every facility. We already do that. I guess the question as we go forward, are we going to fly other flags at all in addition to the American flag?
Well, I guess I would question, Commissioner, why couldn't we just be consistent if that's what we fly the American flag in the Florida at all our other facilities? What would make the Civic Center unique and not be consistent with what we fly at our other facilities?
I'd like to clarify my support for the position in that I admire the city of Pensacola's branding efforts of the 5 flags, and I think I've made clear my position with regard to Southern Heritage. My thinking here is that in every other building you have the 2 flags that you have behind us. What makes the Bay Center different? It is not a city building. It is a county building. We seem to have a pattern of behavior in all of our other buildings, as Commissioner May has mentioned, and so it's my understanding that his motion was that we fly these 2 flags over the Bay Center as well.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm just looking for exactly, and that brings about consistency.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask that if we're going to go that route and we're going to go with a one and only flag, that perhaps you withdraw the motion. If we are allowed to rescind the first motion that we took and then come back with a motion that removes all flags but the American flag, I can support that motion.
I would accept that.
We withdraw your motion?
I'll withdraw the motion.
I asked to rescind the motion that we first took, we previously took on the Confederate flag issue.
Second.
So now the motion on the floor is to rescind the previous action. The previous action of the board. The resultant of this vote would be no action tonight, and then it would be new action from there. The result of this vote would diminish what we did.
Hold on. No, it wouldn't. We could proceed forward.
I understand that. I'm saying at the conclusion of this vote, we're 0.
Absolutely. Okay. We're back with 5 flags.
Gotcha.
And we just remove all but 1.
But what would be the purpose of that, Commissioner, when we could just go ahead and make a motion to remove the remaining flags? I don't know why we have to.
I would ask, if we're going to get to the same perspective, I would ask that we would remove all the flags at one time.
And for discussion, I would rather have that be the course of action if that's going to be the outcome.
That's fine. If that's the outcome, I'll rescind it. That's fine.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to rescind the previous action, which would negate the vote to remove the Confederate flag, which would have our discussion at a net 0 effect.
But first, let's go back. Did they withdraw their motion?
He's already withdrawn the motion.
The motion is second. Okay.
So now the motion that you would be affirming with your vote with your right hand would be to undo the action previously to remove the Confederate flag. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
No.
That motion passes 5-0. Now the net action of our board is 0, and the floor is open for discussion.
Yeah. I'd like to discuss before we have any other motion, and it's better to really get our discussion over before we make a motion. I'm happy to do that. We started out saying we were going to do what the city of Pensacola, and I don't care. The city of Pensacola is in Escambia County, and I still feel like we're together in this thing. The city of Pensacola, I don't care if you do have the upside of Florida and all that, it still had been known for so many years as the city of Five Flags. And I think the Five Flags still fly at the entrance coming across the bridge into Pensacola. I hadn't looked lately. And I know the city of Pensacola is flying it. And you do fly flags at certain prominent locations that you don't necessarily fly everywhere in every building. I understand that. But now, if we're going to even think about being like the city of Pensacola, which this discussion first came about, they still have. They just have a different than the battle flag that we seem to say that's objectionable, and it is to many. Are we not going to be consistent with what this whole thing started out to be? Just change the Confederate flag, but we never ever dreamed, and this was never even talked about, being elimination of all the flags, because we are a city of five flags. I've been here 60 years, and I guarantee you I've known of it as a city of five flags, and it's still going to be promoted by this mayor or other mayors. Even though it is upside of Florida, it's still, in my opinion, going to be considered the city of five flags.
And Commissioner Robertson, I certainly understand your comments. It appears as if the discussion and the will maybe going another way. Commissioner Robinson.
No, I was just going to say, Commissioner May, if you want to make your motion.
Yeah, or you can make it. I mean, you led this charge. I'll be happy to make it, or you can make it.
Go ahead.
I make the motion that we drop all flags other than the stars and stripes United States flag and the state of Florida flag from any building in the county.
I second that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion from the board? So it would not be adding the Florida flag to instances where it's only the stars and stripes. It's just if the Florida flag's there, it can stay, and if not, there's no action, no other flag than the U.S. flag.
Right. I mean,
that's your motion.
We're consistent with what we have here.
Fair enough. Any further discussion? So motion affirmative would be to have that be the only flag. No more. An affirmative vote would support that. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. There are four in favor. Any opposed? Mr. Robertson, please reflect that 4 in favor, 1 opposition. Commissioner Robertson. Next.